Okay. Good evening. I will now call to order this meeting of the Regional Planning Commission. We are located in the Regional Transportation Commission Great Room, and the date is Monday, November 18th, 2024. Time is 6 p.m. Start with item 1. Can I get a roll call, please?
Sure. Harris Armstrong,
Here.
Dan Lazareski,
Here.
Michael Flick. Absent. Marilyn Kramer,
Here.
Carl Nieberlein,
Here.
Rob Pierce,
Here.
Shelley Reed. Absent. Carrie Rohrmeyer
Here.
and Alex Velto. Seems like absent as well.
Manny Becerra here on behalf of Alex Velto.
Oh, and then Manny Becerra for Alex Velto. And that's it.
Perfect. Thank you. We'll close item 1 and move to item 2, salute to the flag. Commissioner Becerra, please lead us.
It's like it's that way. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will close item 2 and move to item 3 for possible action, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
This is Rob. I move to approve as written.
Commissioner Lazareski, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously and the agenda is adopted. Closing item 3, we'll move to item 4, public comment.
We have none.
Do we have anyone in the chambers wishing to speak under general public comment? Seeing none, we will close item 4, general public comment, and move to item 5, business of the day. For possible action, public hearing to receive testimony at a location within the city of Reno concerning approval of the draft of the comprehensive 2024 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan and a recommendation of adoption to the Regional Planning Governing Board as required by NRS 278.0272. This is the second of 3 statutory required public hearings on the 5-year regional plan update. As part of this public hearing, we'll begin with a presentation by staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jeremy Smith for the record. We do have a presentation prepared. It is very similar to materials that have been presented previously and really up to the will of the chair and the board if you want to see that presentation again.
I would suggest not going through the presentation again. Does the commission have any issues with that?
Mr. Chair, I don't see any issues with that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Hearing no other comments, I think we're good to proceed, not going through the full presentation.
Do we want to read this little?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Sorry, here, yeah. Okay, so I will now open the public hearing on item 5A. This is the second of 3 statutory required public hearings on the 5-year regional plan update. We've decided to not have a similar presentation, but anyone wishing to speak should come to the podium, state their name for the record, and keep their comments to 3 minutes. We'll now take public comment on this item.
There's none.
Anyone in chambers wishing to speak under public comment on this item? Seeing none, I will close public comment. And I will now close the public hearing and bring it back to the body for discussion or any action.
Commissioner Becerra?
Yeah, please.
Sure. I wasn't here, but I've read through the material, and I did have a few questions. Hopefully not just for myself, but for anyone else tuning in here on the board or in the wider public. I guess it would be for staff. I'm not sure who that would be, but I did have them outlined here. Let's see. A lot of good stuff. Really love all the resources, the dashboards, all that stuff that kind of comes in and supplements the proposed plans. I was curious how let's see, if staff could elaborate on the specifics of how source water protection and tribal coordination policies will be operationalized and monitored.
Mr. Chair, this is Jeremy Smith, the record. We have Nate Kusha who can speak to that question.
Great. Whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Nate Kusha, for the record, Team RPA. So for the source water protection policies, it's really, we're also looking for sort of the same sort of policy structure as the regional trails policy, which would really be to acknowledge the relevant plan. So there's the source water protection plan. I can't remember the whole name of it. It's a long name, but it's on WashoeCountyCleanWater.org. The plan is up there. They track all the source water, critical source water protection areas, and so forth. And so we are looking for the local jurisdiction or affected entity plans to acknowledge that plan and kind of utilize that. And secondarily, when any review comes in that will need regional review, we will run it through which one of our other policies are NRCA, Natural Resource Consideration Areas. We'll have the map of critical source water protection areas within that. And so if it triggers that, we will then route those to the relevant agency, usually TUMWA, for most of the cases, and we will seek comments from them to include in our initial review memo to the jurisdictions for any development review that will require regional review. Secondarily, the tribal coordination policy. That's really a policy that we're kind of putting in place to put on ourselves to have regular meetings with the tribal governments. And so we have been in contact with the tribes, and we're still kind of setting up what that will be. It's looking now maybe like quarterly meetings with the tribal entities. Additionally, we will be having an internal sort of set of criteria for when a case development review, yet again from a jurisdiction, comes in, and we have a criteria that we'll look at to say, will this affect tribal entities or tribal governments, or will they want to comment on this or provide any feedback? If so, again, before our initial review memos, we'll route those cases to the appropriate tribal entity, requesting feedback, which will then include in our initial review memos to send to the jurisdictions as well. So they have that through their development review process.
Great. Knocked it out of the park like those Dodgers. I do have a follow-up, if I may.
Yeah.
Kind of, related to the overall plan, but I was curious how the SOI, the sphere of influence rollback, would influence the long-term regional development plans, especially regarding public land use.
Yeah, I'm going to throw that to Director Smith. He's been working on the SOI rollback.
Jeremy Smith for the record. Great question. We actually just met with local jurisdiction staff last week to kind of discuss the how that might roll out. Right now, we have an action by the Reno City Council that has removed those areas from the sphere, and so during the regional plan update, and we did this in 2019 with the City of Sparks as well. We'll actually take this stuff out of the sphere. But then we will need to still follow up with a master plan amendment from both the City of Reno and Washoe County. For the City of Reno, it will be to adjust their map to no longer recognize the sphere. And for Washoe County, it will be to bring those areas back into their master planning. And at that time, we plan to ask Washoe County or Reno, whatever is appropriate, to sponsor an amendment to adjust other parameters of the areas that are being rolled back, specifically the tier status. So some of these areas are currently in Tier 2, and that really had to do with the negotiations that went on during the 2019 update and what City of Reno was able to sort of live with in terms of the tiering system in their sphere. So we'll decide, or we'll work together to bring that decision point to this body and to the local bodies to make that choice about what the regional land designation ought to be, and also whether or not some of these areas ought to come out of the TMSA. And just to kind of back up, the reason that these areas were targeted by regional planning staff and City of Reno staff is that they are currently on public lands, particularly Forest Service land or BLM land, federal lands, and they have not been identified as part of the draft public lands bill that's currently in Congress. So given that they are already development constrained by our policy NR3, development constraints area, you can't build on them today, it's not really presenting to decision makers or the public or staff or anyone sort of an honest accounting of what's possible. So in terms of thinking about that future footprint and where we're going, we'll be able to do a better job of indicating where we actually can go by removing these areas.
Great. Thank you so much, Director. And it does come in threes, so I have one more if the body can indulge me.
Yeah, please.
All right, trifecta. staff just elaborate on how emerging infrastructure needs like broadband and renewable energy be integrated into future plans? Oh, yeah. Teamwork makes the dream work.
Chris Tully, Team RPA. That was broadband as in internet service, correct? And that's not one of the, so when we're looking at the infrastructure that we are addressing at the regional level, we are looking at the 5 domains as we've presented on multiple times, which is water, wastewater, schools, stormwater, flood, and transportation. And we are supposed to look at that, sorry, this is kind of long-winded, but we look at those in order to make sure that our decision-making process with regard to land use as it comes from the locals makes sense from an infrastructure perspective. So per state law, broadband internet service isn't one of those, really isn't one of the domains that is listed in state law. So we haven't addressed that in terms of public infrastructure, and I don't know to what degree the public side is actually involved in that in terms of provisioning infrastructure. I don't believe there's any overlap, but I could stand corrected if that's the case.
And does renewable energy fall into one of those domains, or?
It from our perspective, unless it was on, I guess there's a slight overlap, and there's occasionally cases that come before us for projects of regional significance or even a regional plan amendment that are situated on state or even federal lands, and those would require us to be involved theoretically in a BLM, the environmental review process. So that is where we get involved with that, as well as the natural resources side. And Nate, I'm sure could talk about it, but we have some goals in our policies in the regional plan that specifically address natural resources and resiliency of the region in terms of utilizing those.
Great, thank you.
For the record, Nate Kusha, Team RPA. We do have a policy currently in the plan that does encourage renewable energy use. I can't think of the policy number. I don't have a plan in front of me, but we do have a policy in there in the natural resources policy section as well.
And this is Jeremy Smith for the record. If I could just add on, it's kind of fun. You know, we have an entire chapter about energy in our natural resources plan. And it's something that Chris mentioned that, you know, we get involved with whenever a line or a site, if a line is 65 kV or greater, or a new regional utility site of 5 megawatts, I believe is the cutoff, that triggers our process, and we have a host of policies in our PF section that control that. So I think we may not have addressed it in this iteration of the public infrastructure plan per se. It's certainly germane, and you know, as we continue to evolve, all of this stuff is living documents, right? Mm-hmm. I think we got our arms around that state mandate. And moving forward, I think there's room to bring more information to bear. For example, I had a conversation with someone at one of our regional plan update working groups from Tumwa, and he was curious why we're not addressing NV Energy and, you know, the provision of power. And so, you know, maybe there's some path forward there where we could get a little better handle on how to do that.
Great. Well,
In addition, go ahead.
I was going to say in advance, since you're going to give a bit more, it sounds like, but thank you so much, everyone. You all should be really proud of yourselves. This is a great proposal. So.
I was just going to add that when we do have the regional plan amendment and conformance review come forward for utility corridors or a project of regional significance for power generation or the transmission of it, we do reference those policies as part of our review that Nate talked about.
Great. Thanks again. I'm sorry I can barely see you. These are kind of weird arrangements.
Awesome. Thank you, Commissioner. Do we have any other members of the commission with questions or comments? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. Sorry. And for reference, there is a proposed motion on page 4 of the agenda packet.
Commissioner Lazareski, I move to accept all testimony and information provided during the public hearing and approve the comprehensive draft 2024 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan as presented, subject to final approval and recommendation to the RPGB for adoption after the final public hearing scheduled for December 2nd, 2024.
Commissioner Becerra, second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. We will close item 5 and move to item 6A, item 6, reports. 6A, members and directors' reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jeremy Smith, the record again. Just a quick report. Basically, just want to give us a reminder that on December 2nd, we will have the third public hearing. I think it's really important that, if at all possible, all members could be in person for that meeting at the Sparks Council Chambers, because that is the meeting wherein we will actually ask you to recommend to the governing board to bring this forward and adopt at their December 12th meeting. So you could really use your participation in person on that day. But have appreciated the Zoom option as well as we're leading up to that. And then finally, won't see you before the holiday, so happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Thank you. Close item 6A, move to item 6B, legal counsel's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jessica Prenti for the record. Just want to wish everyone a wonderful Thanksgiving filled with family and good times and good food.
Wonderful. Thank you. With that, we will close item 6 and move to item 7, requests for future agenda items. Do we have any requests? Hearing none, we'll close item 7 and move to item 8, general public comment.
We have none.
Anyone in the chambers wishing to speak under general public comment? Hearing none, we'll close item 8 and move to item 9, written correspondence.
We have none.
Wonderful. We will close item 9 and move to item 10, adjournment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you so much.